Hello everyone and welcome to Thorough Newspaper Analysis, which is brought to you by LawSikho. So these are the articles that we will be discussing today in detail. Firstly, a case for down-to-earth governance. It is from the Hindu, and as the name itself is suggesting, it means it focuses about strengthening the local governance in India in order to make the entire governance and the entire setup in India a very strengthened one. Then secondly, mountains that sustain millions. Now, as we know that today is 9th of September and we celebrate and observe today's day as the Himalaya Diwas. And that is why a description about the Himalayan mountains and how much are they important and what challenges are they facing currently will be discussed in this article. And thirdly, amending to destroy. As again, we have discussed that the Sri Lankan parliament is now considering to reframe and redraw its constitution altogether in a new sense. And in this context, we will be discussing about a few amendments that would actually be in a capacity to affect the interests of India as well. So we'll see all of this in detail. And fourthly, we have the news and flash, where we'll be discussing the small crisp pointer news, which are specifically important for our fact building as well as the prelims exam. But before that, let's have a look at the LawSikho courses that we have for you. And we have the Lord of the Courses, which is a judiciary test prep course. So you can enroll yourself as well if you're preparing for judicial services. And the link is there in the description box to the landing page of this course. You can also download free study material for yourself. Then we are very shortly coming up with various other courses like the law optional for UPSC as well. So you may try them too. With this, let's see that what is the MCQ for the day. Which region is known as third pole of the world due to enormous snow available there? Now, as we know that we have two poles already, the North and the South Pole. So which region is commonly known as third pole of the world? Firstly, Alaska, B, Siberia, C, Vladivostok, or D, Hindu Kush? If you know the answer to this question, do jot it down in the comment section below. So this is the descriptive question for the day. There are still a number of challenges involved in empowering the local governance in India due to various structural limitations. And these structural limitations specifically we will be discussing in today's article. Critically examine. Please keep in mind that whenever the question has this word critically examine or critically comment, critically discuss, etc., in such scenarios, you have to write both the advantages and the disadvantages, or the merits or the demerits, that is both the sides of the argument in that particular given statement. Whenever there are terms such as simply like discuss, comment, elaborate, elucidate, you simply have to write your opinion regarding it. But whenever there is this term critically, please keep in mind to give both the sides of argument. The answer to this question has to be given within a word limit of 250 to 300 words. You may also jot it down in the comment section below. With this, let's quickly start with a discussion of our first article, which talks about strong local government. Since India's independence 73 years ago, a strong local government is yet to be implemented fully to make India's democracy strong and deep. As we already know that the Panchayati system, or if generally we speak about the local governance system, was one of the dreams that were sought by Mahatma Gandhi. But even at the time of independence, we did not have a proper provision or a proper formulated legislation that provided for the such local governance. And it was only after the 73rd Amendment Act when Panchayati Raj was officially added in the governance system of India, and through the 74th Amendment Act, we had the municipalities as well. But even till date, if we try to analyze the strength and the proper functioning of the local governments in India, it is yet to be implemented fully. And even today, India's democracy needs to be strengthened more on these grounds. All of us have also heard about Anna Hazare's movement, wherein he actually had this fasting. He did this fasting for such a long period of time to bring in the Lokpal bill in order to curb corruption, and so that the government officials specifically could be made accountable for any kind of corrupt practices that they involved into. Then why at all do we need strong local government? Basically, it is very important for us to understand that what is the real need of having a strong local government, and how actually some policy changes or some functional changes in the local governance can actually lead to a greater and larger effect, and also a greater and larger benefit at the national and the wholesome level. Firstly, increasing race to raise more political funding. Basically, what currently is happening is that people, instead of actually looking into the correct whereabouts of a political party or a political leader or candidate, they actually get wooed with various kinds of gifts or other kinds of activities or other kinds of benefits that are provided from the side of the political parties. And even if such practices are not taken up, even taken up, still it is really not financially easy in our country today to contest an election without having good sources of money. And that is why many a times what happens is that the political party that actually doesn't even deserve to be at that place is still voted for that particular position because they had good amounts of money running through. That is why it is important that the communication with the citizens, which actually in today's time has become very expensive, should not be made that way, and the parties or the candidates should be made easily, it should be easily possible for them to communicate directly with the citizens. And for this, a very good step that can be taken is to make the citizens as well as aware at the local level, so that they know the whereabouts of the candidate that they are voting for, or do they even want to vote for that particular candidate or not. Secondly, presidential versus parliamentary system. Now, as we know that in a presidential system, the connection or the deliberation of some particular schemes, policies, or any steps that are taken by the government are directly voted by the people. And in a way, we can say that the people become directly a part of the decision-making body. But in India, we have the parliamentary system, and here people are, though they are involved, but yes, they are involved indirectly with the decision-making process. This actually increases the gap between the decision actually being made and the people, or the people at large, what they contended. That is why India should follow a system, though it might stick to the parliamentary system, but still we should make sure that the people, even from the local or the lowest levels, are also involved actively in the process of decision making. Thirdly, please mind it must be the third step, local interest versus national interest in parliamentary deliberations. Now, this is one of the basic structural issues or challenges that we face in the Indian system of governance, is that the people, the candidates or the politicians who now we have as leaders or the MPs, they actually are coming from some particular constituency. Now, as compared to the entire territory of India, one single constituency is definitely a very small part of that country. And even the population of that particular constituency is very, very less as compared to the total population of our country, right? But then again, the candidate or the member of parliament who is hailing from this particular constituency needs to make sure that the interests of his constituency and his people have been met properly when there is any discussion about them in the parliament. Because obviously, if he's not able to provide benefits to his own people who have actually voted for him, he knows it for surety that in the very next election, people will not be voting for him. So in order to stay in power, he has to make sure that he surpasses every other kinds of things, and he makes sure that the people of his own constituency are benefited, which in a way is a very good thing to see. But if we talk about this in entirety, the national interest has to be hampered due to this. Because, for example, if there are 10 leaders who are discussing about a particular issue, and there are different contentions given by all the 10 members or the members of parliament, keeping in mind the requirements of their own constituency and their own people, how do you think that it will be possible for all 10 of them to actually come up with something that is in real national interest? Obviously, it will be something that is benefiting the people at a very small scale and not at the larger national scale. Due to this, the representatives fight for the largest share for their constituency than the growth of whole country, which is another issue. Then thirdly, political parties in a democracy, because obviously we know when we talk about the political parties, so the outer circumstances are all definitely, they are also corrupt in many situations, but many a times the internal transactions that take place within a particular party, they too are undemocratic in nature, and they result in self-aggrandizing politicians. So definitely they focus more on their own image rather than the image of the party, and keep aside the image of the party rather than the benefit of the whole nation. Now, when we talk about this or the criminalization of politics, we already had discussed this case of Ram Babu Singh Thakur versus Sunil Arora and others, wherein the Supreme Court of India discussed about the criminalization of politics, because we know that as per the 2019 counting, 43% of the total member of parliaments, that is approximately half of all of the MPs, have in some or the other way been indulged into some of the other criminal activities, and cases are pending against them. So in this case of Ram Babu Singh Thakur versus Sunil Arora and others, the Supreme Court made it mandatory for the political parties to give a written account as to why they chose a person for giving ticket of its own party who has been involved into criminal acts, or who has some kind of criminal proceeding going on against him. And they will have to give this in writing as to why they did not choose any other candidate who had a clean sheet background, and rather they chose somebody else. And to make it further clearer, the Supreme Court has mandated that the possibility of winnability cannot be cited, which means that the political party just cannot say that we thought that this particular candidate has greater chances of winning the election in his constituency, and that is why we chose him over the other candidate, even though he was involved into some criminal acts. So that cannot be quoted, and they need to have some substantial reason behind it. With this, we can clearly understand that the criminalization in the political system and the politicians has been a very huge problem that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Now let's discuss that what actually can the steps that can be taken in improving India's democratic setup. Firstly, no alternative to good local governance can be there than encouraging the citizens to manage their local affairs. Now, when we are talking about this issue, wherein we say that the politicians or the member of parliaments focus more on the local interest in order to keep their seats secure in their own constituency, due to which the national interest has to hamper. A solution to this can be that good local governance, that people themselves at the local level are so equipped, so acknowledged, so educated that they can actually address their own issues and can find solutions for themselves. Once that starts happening, obviously the leaders that they had chosen and now are the member of parliament can now focus on the greater issues that are for the national interest. And that is why a complete and an overall development can take place of the whole nation. Secondly, one-size solutions at the center cannot fit all, obviously, because every constituency, every area, every community of the people have different issues, and they need to be addressed in different situations and different manner. And that is why one-size-fits-all scenario cannot be dealt with. Third, will help voters understand what is at stake. Example, Californians and UK's Brexit. Now, as we know that this will actually, when the people actually are a part of the decision making, but to make sure that people are well informed about what they are deciding for, it will be very good that the decisions are coming from the actual people who have to be governed by those decisions. Like in this example where UK or Britain has taken this exit from the European Union, the actual decision was taken by the people. But do they even realize in reality that what all repercussions will now Britain have to face at the global level and also at various other economic and other levels once now it has exited from the European Union? Maybe not. So that is why it is very important that the citizens in India that you have must be informed about what decision they are going to take. Now, here are some examples, or here are some provisions which are available from the Representation of People's Act. Please mind, it is Representation of People's Act 1951, which talks about the criminalization of the politics or corruption in the politics. So Section 8A, Section 11A and Section 123 of the Act talks about the corrupt practices and also talks about the disqualification of a particular political candidate if at all he gets indulged into such corrupt practices. Now let's get to the second article for the day, which talks about Himalayas. Now, as we know that 9th September is observed as Himalaya Diwas by the government of Uttarakhand to spread the message of conservation of the Himalayan ecosystems, and it was declared in 2014. Basically, if we try to break this word Himalayas, it breaks into Him, which means snow, and Ale, as we all know, means the abode. So basically, Himalaya is the house or the home of snow or the abode of snow. So it is one of the youngest mountains in the world. Yes, it might surprise you a lot, but though they are like millions of years ago already, but they're still one of the youngest mountains of the world. And India has one of the oldest mountains of the world as well. the Aravalli Range, so which is there in the Rajasthan, Haryana side. So that is one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world. But Himalayas are one of the youngest mountains in the world. Please keep in mind, a very, very potential prelims question might arise from the Himalayas as well, that it is the youngest or the oldest mountains of the world. So you must know that it is the youngest one. Then it is also cited amongst the 36 world biodiversity hotspots due to the high range of flora and fauna, or the amazing range of flora and fauna that is available in Himalayas. So the region encompassing the Hindu Kush Himalaya has a population of 240 million people, and this is a report by the International Center for Integrated Mountain Development. Now, this is an extra information for all of you that Hindu Kush, which is one of the regions in Himalaya range, we'll be seeing the location of it in the very next slide. This place, basically this is a glacier, is actually known as the third pole of the world because huge amounts of ice is available in this glacier. Let's see now that what are the challenges that are being faced by the people and also the ecology in the Himalayan region. Firstly, vulnerable inhabitants, because few livelihood options are available, weak infrastructure is there, inadequate information on mountain specific climate change, etc. Because we know that the terrain is such that infrastructural development is not that easy in the mountain areas, and so the Himalayas also, due to the harsh climate as well as the terrain, they also present a lot of challenges in it. Then secondly, lack of irrigation sources, because obviously drying up of local rivers occurs, which are called as the Gandhera. Then spring, which are called as small tributaries, and spring dhara and aquifer, etc. So there are a few kinds of water resources available, but in some times of the year, they also dry up. And irrigation is another problem, and due to the terrain, water pipelines and other kinds of water availability is not really very feasible. And thirdly, decreasing agro-biodiversity, which means traditional replaces with cash crops. Now, as we know that obviously people want to gain more and more, and due to economic situations, and also they do not have really very exhaustive job options also. So there, the land that is available is being used more for growing the commercial crops rather than the traditional crops that were earlier sown or grown in this area. Due to this, the quality of the soil and other ingredients is degrading now, and the agro-biodiversity is also decreasing. This basically is the map of the Himalayan range, this entire area. So this is the Hindu Kush Glacier, which is known as the third pole of the world. This is the Karakoram range, which falls in Jammu and Kashmir, and Karakoram is also very important due to its strategic location as well. These are the Western Himalayas, these are known as the Central Himalayas, and these are known as the Eastern Himalayas. A very important river, Ganga, is coming from here, and right from here flows the Brahmaputra. These are various glaciers, so they have been numbered with alphabets, so you can also have a look at them. So there are a lot of glaciers that are there, but the most important in this is the Hindu Kush Glacier. Now let's see that what are the steps that are needed to improve the quality or improve the life and the resources that are available in Himalayas. First, mountain specific policies, because obviously, like just we discussed in the previous slide, that one size fits all situation or one size fits all solution cannot really be applied to everything. And that is why whatever schemes and policies that we are trying to put up in the Himalayan region or even in the mountain region, they should be specific with the problems that are endemic to that particular area. Secondly, encourage organic farming, because as we just discussed that people are more indulged into the commercial farming now. So they should be given some other sources of income, and on the side by side, they should be encouraged to go into organic farming. Thirdly, revive local food systems, which people have currently abandoned in many situations, but they should be revived more often. Fourthly, strengthen marketing systems and infrastructure, which obviously is very important for any kind of development to take place. Fifthly, explore healthy livestock management, because due to the lack of various resources, it could be even the medical resources or other maintenance resources, the livestock, that is the animal husbandry in such areas is really tough in many a times, and that is why healthy options should be explored and given to the people. Sixthly, harness the potential of medicinal plants, because as we know that Himalayas, they have been aboard, or they have been such an important place for various medicinal plants that are available. So people should be made more available about it, and the potential to raise the medicinal plants should be increased. Then find solutions to region-specific water security and clean energy. And eighth, encourage people's participation, especially women, because they definitely are a very important part of the society, and they're also very strong in this area, because the women who belong to such terrains are very hardworking and strong, and that is why their participation can lead significantly to the growth in Himalayas as well. With this, let's discuss the last article for the day, which talks about the 20th Amendment, which is there in Sri Lanka. So the Rajapaksa government in Sri Lanka has proposed the 20th Amendment Bill to make the office of the executive president more powerful than it was provided earlier in the original 1978 constitution. So obviously, in a way, we can even put it in consonance with the 1975 emergency period that was there in India, wherein the Indira Gandhi government was so much into absolute power that it made such laws that were mostly favorable to the power of the parliament and to the power of the executive, that was the prime minister. And in such a scenario, it is very much like it is appropriate to say that when we say that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts, absolutely. So that can actually be, it can be seen into reality this time also, that now since Rajapaksa government is into high majority in Sri Lanka and they are up to amending the bill, amending the constitution of Sri Lanka, they are trying to give more and more power to the executive president, of course. Now let's see that what actually led to this move. So 5 years ago, the United National Front led by President Matripal Sirisena brought in the 19th Amendment, and the campaign has arisen to get rid of the 13th Amendment, which was adopted in 1987 to provide a modicum of devolution of political power to the Tamil minority. Basically, the only thing that we need to understand here is that why at all this amendment is concerning India, because we know that in Sri Lanka, there is a minority of Tamilians who actually migrated from India. And that is why their interest is really important for the Indian government as well. And just like we have a lot of minorities in India as well, so Tamilians are a minority in Sri Lanka, and the majority that actually is mostly at a conflict or in clash with the Tamilians are the Sinhalas. So basically, in 1987, after a huge intervention that took place from India's side, this political power and to devolve more power and representation to the Tamil minority had been provided through the 13th Amendment. But now, through this overhauling of the constitution, they are in view of taking away this 13th Amendment and putting it down, which definitely will cause a hue and cry for the Tamilian minority that is there in Sri Lanka. So President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, both are brothers, see the presidency as key to continuing in power. So they think that if we would empower the presidential post, so we will be able to continue the power. Now let's see that what are the important changes brought by the 19th Amendment. First, decreased presidential term from 6 to 5 years. Extended Supreme Court's fundamental right jurisdiction to official acts of the president. Please keep in mind that this were the changes that were brought by the 19th Amendment, and they're already putting down the 19th Amendment. So this is not something that this Rajapaksa government is doing. This was done earlier, and they're actually putting down all of these provisions. Thirdly, repealed urgent bill procedure, and fourthly, restricted number of cabinet to 30. Basically, in this article, we, being Indians and keeping in mind the interest of India, only need to understand the impact that such amendments would have on the interest of Indians in Sri Lanka. Now, also China's, representation or China's growth as an influence is also a big reason to worry for India, keeping in mind the already bitter relations that are going on between India and China. So Sri Lanka is developing good relations with China, which might not be a very good news for India in the future. So on that note, let's see that what relationship does China share with Sri Lanka in the current situation. $11 billion investment by Chinese is there under the Rajapaksa regime. Secondly, the Belt and Road Initiative, which is trying to connect through road or through water various nations in the Indian Ocean region. Thirdly, leasing of the Hambantota port, which is a very, very important port in the northeastern side of the Sri Lanka. So this is very important, and lease is being provided to China on this port. And fourthly, Chinese investment in agriculture, especially for rubber, tea and coconut. With this, let's quickly discuss the news and flash. So the National Statistical Office's Health in India report has said that only 59.2% of children in India are fully immunized immunized from various diseases, and about 97% of children received at least one vaccinations. But the biggest thing that concerns us is that even till date, 40% of children are still not being vaccinated for the measles thing. So only 67% of children are protected against the measles. Secondly, first World Solar Technology Summit of International Solar Alliance has been held. So in the summit, PM Modi stressed on the need to reduce the cost of solar power in order to boost the use and expansion of renewable energy. And as per PM Modi, India has set up a project preparation facility to develop bankable solar energy projects with the International Solar Alliance members with help from Exim Bank of India. So this was all for today. We hope it was a good and informative session for you. Stay tuned with LawSikho for such more sessions to come. Thank you so much.